Good morning, friends. This is John and Jane Covey. We're in our home, and we have come with a message for you this morning about the 7 habits of highly effective families. So we hope you will enjoy it and be with us. We love you. We appreciate you. We have met you all over the U.S. and in many parts of the world. And this is our message to you, just a review today of the 7 habits for families. And I'd like to begin by telling you that as John and I have traveled, that we have learned that we never define families. Some of you out there are single, some of you are divorced, some of you are divorced with children, some of you have a partner, some a grandparent, caring for children, a caretaker, or a 2-parent family. Doesn't matter what the configuration of your family is. These are habits of human effectiveness, and they will work for you. They will work for you whatever your circumstances are. And so for about an hour this morning, we're going to share some of those habits with you and also share our hearts with you on how they've made a difference in our lives.
Now, I wish you'd tell the story of our experience with Rachel and Coleman.
I will. We just returned from Kentucky. And while we were in Kentucky, we decided that we'd make the 3-hour drive to Indiana with our children. And our daughter, Rachel, lives there with her husband and with their family. So right after we got there, the schools were shut down and children were now doing schoolwork from home. Rachel's husband, Coleman, was doing his work from home. And we were all there together, 3 teenage boys and an 11-year-old daughter, Gracie. Rachel said, "Mom, how about if you and Dad review the 7 habits for us while you're here?" We said, if the children want us to, we will. So we did. We took 1 hour each day, a little more the second day. And in that time, we talked about the 7 habits of families. We laughed a little. We wrote some things down. We shared some ideas together. And when it was over, we felt bonded. The overwhelming feeling I'd had was that we felt bonded. And after we were gone back home, Rachel texted us and said, "Mom, since you've been gone, we have been using the 7 habit language with each other."
It was a great experience, frankly. Now, family problems don't go away. As a matter of fact, the longer the family goes, the more complicated they can become. So the key is not handling problems. The key is how we handle the problems. That's what makes families happy or not so happy. So we'd like to say this. As we think about a family, we think about the flight of an airplane. An airplane, for an example, if we were to go from Los Angeles to New York, an airplane would do this. Number 1, they would have a clear destination, New York. Number 2, they would have a flight plan that would get them to their destination. And number 3, they would have equipment, because with wind and weather, they're off a lot of the time, but they just keep on getting back on. Now, that's the same way with a family. If a family has those 3 things, first, a clear destination. Second, a flight plan. And in this case, it's the 7 habits. It's a proven flight plan. And third, an inner compass, so that when you get off track, you just keep on getting back on track. There's no problem with getting off track. The best families are off track a lot of the time, but it doesn't matter. You just keep on going and improving as a family. So with that basic idea, let's begin with habit number 1. Habit number one is called be proactive, not reactive. And I want you to imagine that you're looking at a circle. The large circle outside is the circle of no control. The smaller inside circle is the circle of control. So this is our lives. Now, the question is, what do you have no control over? Like taxes and weather? Do you have control over people's attitudes? Can you control even the people in your own family? No, you can't control them. You can try to be kind to them, but you can't control them. But the center circle is the circle of control. And that's what the things you can control. So what can you control? Well, you can control your actions. You can control your attitude. You can control what comes out of your mouth. You can control your thinking. And the biggest thing you can control is your choices. And so being proactive says that between what's happening to you and your response, there is a space. And in that space, you have the freedom to choose your response. And that great gift is the proactive gift. Now, the best way to understand proactivity is to understand reactivity.
I'm going to talk about that for just a minute, dear friends. We know this is a very hard time. We're all home together. We have mothers and dads working from home, or maybe not working at all. We have scarcities of food. We can't go out and meet together like we used to. This is a difficult time for all of us. And we have wondered, how much do we need these 7 habits now? John and I feel that we might need them now more than we ever have in our lives. And so now I'd like to share with you a little bit about habit 1, about what it means to be reactive. And surely in our families right now, we're thinking about how easy it is to be reactive. I want you to imagine I've got a Coke bottle in one hand, a water bottle in another. I want you to imagine these are 2 men driving down the freeway. They could be 2 women or 2 teenagers, but for our story, they'll be 2 men. They're driving down the freeway and they're going 70 miles an hour. They're parallel. One man has a big dog and some friends in the car, and the other man has a family, his wife and his children in the car. They're going 70 miles an hour when a car comes from an outside lane, shoots right in front of them, causing them both to slam on their brakes. Everything that's not tied down in the car hits the windshield. The dog, papers, pencils, everything hits the windshield, and then this guy takes off. Now, this man's reactive. What might he do? Yeah, we know. Go after him, swear, yell. All right, this man's proactive. What might he do? See if everyone's all right in the car. Take a moment, a pause to thank the Lord that they're alive. So what's the difference then? What is the difference then in being reactive and proactive? And how does it relate in our families? I'd like to share a story with you. We have a daughter named Hannah, and Hannah and her husband Ben live in a suburb of a big city. And then they not only live in the suburb, but they live in a cul-de-sac. And in this cul-de-sac, there are 8 families. And these families all know each other because just around the corner of the cul-de-sac, there's a school. And so in the mornings, the children come out of the houses and they get on their razors or scooters or walk or bike, and they go over to the school together. So the children all know each other. And so the parents know each other too. A few years ago, the house next door to our daughter Hannah came for sale, but no one bought it. Instead, a family of renters moved in. They had 2 children, a girl and a boy, both going to the school. And right from the start, their children started to get into trouble. Their daughter was in trouble at the school. Their little boy was in trouble in the neighborhood. The parents were hostile. They seemed to have a chip on their shoulder. They seemed to be angry with everybody. And they were just a troublesome, unhappy, seeming family. At Christmas time this year, the daughter was old enough to have her learner's license, her driver's license. And as she pulled into the circle, she pulled into her driveway. And Ben, our son-in-law, went over, knocked on the window, and said, "Would you drive a little slower, please? There's children right here in this circle." She went in the house and told her parents. That night, 10 o'clock at night, there was a loud bang on Hannah's front door. She opened it up, and the couple renting the house next door burst into her house. The father started to yell and swear, "Where's your husband? Where is that guy? I want to get a hold of him." And Hannah said, "I'm sorry. He's gone to bed. He gets up very early in the morning. He starts work early, and he's in bed asleep." And he said, "Get him up here. I want to talk to him." Hannah went in and got Ben. Ben stumbled out into the front entry where the front door was. And this man just attacked him. He attacked Ben with all he had. He attacked his manhood. He attacked everything about him. He swore at him. He yelled at him. And then he said, "And I want you to know, I hate guys like you." And then the wife started on Hannah. And she said, "And you gossip about me. I know you gossip about me. All of you do. And I hate you for it." And they shut the door and left. Hannah and Ben stood there in pain and shock. In pain. They didn't even know what to say. Ben he couldn't even talk. He just stumbled back into the bedroom. Hannah put the children to bed, and she thought long and hard about what just had happened to them. And she put her coat on, and she went out into that cold winter night, and she went next door. She knocked at the neighbor's back door, and the wife answered, and Hannah said, "I have gossiped about you. I have. And I've come to tell you I'm sorry and to ask you to forgive me." And the mother just broke down. And they embraced. The next morning, Ben got up very early, before anyone else in the family was up. And at 6:30 a.m., he too went next door. He knocked on the back door. One of the children answered, and he said, "Can I talk to your father?" And when the father came, Ben said, "You know, I think maybe I could have handled that situation with your daughter a little better. Yeah, I've been thinking about it. I think maybe I could have handled it a little better, and I've come to apologize." And the father broke down. When we are reactive, react in the moment according to what has happened to us. When we are proactive, we choose our response based on our values.
Interestingly enough, that the proactive model has a space between what's happening to you and your response. And in that space are 4 human gifts. We have the gift of self-awareness. We have the gift of conscience. We have the gift of imagination. And we also have the gift of independent will, the will to move forward. And when we utilize those gifts, then we start to develop our proactive muscles. And one of the things that is so critical is for everybody to always, when they start to feel that being upset and so on, to push the pause button. Now, I know you have a belly button, but I'm just saying that this is the pause button. Let me tell you a true story, and it's a little embarrassing to me. We'd been married for several years, and this was many years ago, and I came home, and I had been justifiably beaten up at work, and I walked in to the house. Jane was there with a couple of our children, and I looked it over, and I said, well, Jane, this place is a mess. What do you do all day?
We survived it.
Well, it just shows how very selfish I was. But I realized, I used my conscience. I realized I'd hurt her. I don't want to hurt my sweetheart. And I used my self-awareness. I said, this is not right. And I used my imagination, and I said, I'm not going to ever do this again. And so what I did is I designated my driveway as a pause button driveway. So when I'd pull in from work, justifiably beaten up, I'd stop and I'd pause. I'd push that pause button. And I'd think, why do I go to work? I go to work to make happy what's inside that house. And then I'd reorient my thinking. And then I would walk in and I'd say to Jane, how can I help you? You must have had quite a day. How can I help? That change from being reactive to proactive has made all the difference in all our entire marriage. So to be proactive, not reactive, is the foundation. You take responsibility for yourself. Well, now, having taken responsibility for yourself, now, if you're responsible, then what are you all about? What do you stand for? What do you want your family to stand for? And that's habit 2. Habit 2 is beginning with the end in mind. It's having a destination. We suggest that habit 2 is the habit of vision. It's the habit of purpose. What's the purpose of your family? What's the purpose of what you do in your home and family? This is what we try to do, is to develop a purpose, a family mission statement, something that guides your family.
Let's talk about that mission statement for just a minute. This habit 2 is what we call the blueprint habit. Would you look around you in the room you're in right now? Can you see anything that wasn't created first mentally before it was created physically? The belt you're wearing, your watch, the clock on the wall, the lamp, the light fixture, the carpet, the chair you're sitting on. Wasn't it all created with some kind of a little blueprint before it was actually manufactured? Well, then how about creating a blueprint for your life? It doesn't have to be in cement. This isn't forever. This is just for now. To create an idea of a little plan, a little blueprint of what we want our family to be like. All right, let's talk about that for a minute. I'd like to talk about our mission statement. Our mission statement is no empty chairs. Just 3 words, but what it means to us is that we will go after each member of the family. You belong to us. We have members of our family who don't think like us, who don't look like us, don't feel like we do. We love them. And we, John and I, have committed for the rest of our lives, we will say to them, each one in our family, come home. You belong to us. We want no empty chairs. We have a grandson who just recently turned 18. I sent him an email that morning. Got an email back. And in the email, he said, thank you for thinking about me. I love you too. That's what no empty chairs means to us. Now, the little family that we left in Indiana, 3 teenage boys, 11-year-old girl, they made a mission statement many years ago. And it was, we are builders. And they talk about it. They talked about it while we were there. If something's happened going on in the family, the mom might say, hey, was that building or was that tearing down? They committed. We'll try to build. We'll try to build each other in the family, and we'll try to build at school or wherever we go. Now, it's something to think about, and they talk about it. So we might suggest at a time now that you might want to sit around and talk about, what do we want our family to be like? That's habit 2, creating a family mission statement.
Can I say this, that our family mission statement, No Empty Chairs, has had a tremendous impact, not only with our own family, but with their families. And I had a granddaughter come up to me and say, Papa, that's what they call me, I'm getting married. And we've talked together, this boy and I, and we've agreed we'll have no empty chairs. So what you do in your own family, that pattern persists. So that's habit 2. Begin with the end in mind, and that is the flight plan destination. Now, habit 3 says this. Okay, habit 1, you're responsible. Habit 2, now you've got a dream. Now, put first things first. Habit 3 is prioritize it. Don't just talk about it. Actually, make it happen. There are several things that you can make it happen. And worldwide, we suggest these 4 basic practices.
Families fall when they stop nurturing each other from within. Doesn't matter if you're a rich family or a poor family. We need to nurture each other from within. At FranklinCovey, we have chosen 4 things that we believe will nurture your family from within. And so we'd like to share those with you. First is one-on-one time. One-on-one time. This is very special time. Maybe you're thinking, we're having plenty of one-on-one time. We're all on top of each other right now. We'd like a little space. We understand that. But one-on-one time works magic with people. Maybe it's just to be able to go into a child's room at night and sit down on the edge of the bed and talk. Or better still, just to listen in the dark. Might be the only time a teenage boy would open up with you. Or to take one child and say, let's go get an ice cream cone. We don't know if we can even do that now with our situation. But any one-on-one conversations, I think reading together is a fabulous thing. I'll never forget as a family when we read Where the Red Fern Grows. And reading a book with a child, anything you can do one-on-one time will have huge benefits for you down the road. Some time ago, John was asked to go do a 7 Habits program in London. And they told me that I could come with him. We weren't working together at the time. And I had the suitcase open on the bed in our bedroom, and I was just putting things in it as I walked around the room. And our teenage daughter, who was then 14, came in, plopped herself down on the edge of the bed and said, "Don't go, Mom. I don't want you and Dad to go. I know the plane will go down and you'll never come back to me." I said, "Oh, darling, we'll be fine, Chrissy. Airplanes are safe. We'll be just fine." She said, "No, you won't. And I can't live without Dad." I said, "Really?" She said, "You know I can't. Dad believes in me, Mom. I can't live without him. Don't go on this trip. What if he never comes back to me?" I started thinking about it. I said, "Well, do you feel like I believe in you?" And she said, "Yeah, Mom, you're okay. But you know, Dad, he believes in me, Mom. I can't live without Dad. Don't go on this trip." I thought later, what has John done that has helped her feel so strongly, this junior high girl, that he believes in her? I think one-on-one time is the answer.
To me, there's no question about that. The one-on-one time is the time when hearts really weld together, when they know that you love them unqualified and that you believe in them and that you're there for them. You're an advocate, you're a cheerleader for their life and for all they're doing.
The second thing we suggest is eating together. Now, maybe you're doing more of this than you want right now at home. We understand that. But let's be sure that there's a table involved. Sit around the table and to talk and to make it as happy as you can. There are a lot of fun things that families do around the table, and we suggest you do them now at this difficult time. Eat together, sit around a table together, and share together. You got something you want to share, John?
We have purchased some cards. They're table talk cards as a sample. For an example, that says, what's the funniest story you've heard for why somebody couldn't turn in their homework? And people share, and then there's a whole series of cards. And it's really fun. It's a fun game, and it makes the time together enriching and really reinforcing. And you build relationships of love and happiness together.
The third thing we'd suggest is that even though this is a hard time right now, and we know that you take 1 hour a week and do something fun together. Many families like to play board games. Bring out board games. And if you say, no, we're not into board games, go outside. If you possibly can, go outside, go for a walk together, get on bikes, do something together outside if you can for an hour once a week. And if that won't work, if you possibly can, get in the car and go to a drive-in and get a milkshake, something they're not used to do. But during this time, when this hard time together, do something once a week. Maybe it's a movie night where there's lemonade and popcorn, but plan something together that you'll do just as a family, 1 hour once a week.
And block it out. Make it never to be changed. Every week you do this. Then people begin to have an identity of who they are. This is my family, and I'm a part of this something, and it's something pretty special.
And that also has to do with the fourth thing, which is traditions. Some people have traditions over the religion or big holidays. Keep up your traditions, because your traditions say to each other, we're the Segura family, and this is what we do. They give your family an identity. Don't stop traditions. Don't stop doing what you've always done if you possibly can.
I just wanted to share with you a booklet that we have pulled together, the family stories, compile family stories that you remember, and your children will thank you for it forever. I've got to say this. You want to know what the biggest criticism of the 7 Habits for Family is, without any question? People say, this is just common sense. What's the big deal? But it's not common practice. And that's the big deal. When you actually do what we're recommending, then you find an energy and a unity that the family pulls together, and there's a joy. Now we move from habit 3, putting first things first, prioritizing your life, to habit 4, and that is thinking win-win, thinking mutual benefit.
Okay, let's talk about habit 4. Habit 4 includes the emotional bank account. And we all know what a bank account is. We use that metaphor because if we put $1,000 in the bank, we can draw $500 out or $300 out. But we can't draw more than that out. And so all of us have an emotional bank account with each other. It's a bank account of trust. And we are making deposits or withdrawals in that bank account of trust every day. Sometimes in a family, we're making withdrawals and we don't realize it. We think we're making deposits. a lot of that has to do with the way we talk to each other. So we'd like to just address that for just a minute. But before we do, I'd like to share with you what I think is the biggest emotional deposit that we can make. And that is this: say the words, I love you, to the people you love. If I were to ask those of you who are listening to this today, how many of you regularly heard those words growing up? Very few of you would say, yes, I did. Very few of you. You might say, I knew I was loved, but I never heard those words from my mother's lips or my father's lips. Say the words, I love you. It is a huge emotional deposit coming from a father to a daughter, a mother to a son. Any
I love
parent
you,
to a child.
sweetheart.
I love you too,
I
baby.
do.
Okay, now I want to share a story with you that happened to me when I was teaching the 7 Habits alone. I was in a small town in Texas, and we were going through the 7 Habits of Families, and I talked about this, saying the words, I love you, to the people you love. And there was a couple who had come to attend this lecture, and everyone who was putting this on was excited about him because this man was a sculptor, and he had sculpted a beautiful piece that was out on the front lawn of this library and had sculpted some beautiful pieces around the town. And he and his wife had come this day to listen to the 7 Habits. And the people who were putting on were very excited about this. He and his wife sat on the front row, and I looked over at him from time to time. I didn't see any emotion at all. But afterwards, as soon as I was through, he quickly rushed up to me. He was an older man, and I could see the pain on his face. And he said, you talked about saying, I love you, to the people you love. I have a son I have not spoken to for 8 years. In my culture, men do not say I love you to each other. I could never say those words to him. I looked at him closely and I said, then change your culture. Your son needs to hear those words from you. He said, I know he does, but I don't think I could ever say them, but I think I could write them. I said, then write them. He said, I will. Emotional bank account. We can lift each other by our words, or we can crush each other. This is an especially important time that we are careful what we say and that we try to make deposits, not withdrawals.
You know, when you look at the chart of the emotional bank account, know this, that there are certain fundamental principles of human effectiveness that govern our family and human relationships. And when we live those principles, we prosper. And when we don't live by those principles, then human relationships are tarnished. Let me give you an example. As you look at this chart, being unkind versus simply being kind. Saying, for an example, thank you, or please, or may I help you. Another withdrawal is to not apologize versus apologizing. Or another withdrawal, as you look down, is gossip about those who are not present. But the principle of human effectiveness is be loyal to those not present. Don't gossip. Another withdrawal is disregard and don't keep promises, whereas a definite deposit is to make and keep your promises. Another one is hold a grudge, whereas you should be forgiving. And let me say this, you will always be a victim unless you forgive, always. And final one, point out people's weaknesses versus the emotional bank account is point out a person's strengths and their potential. The emotional bank account is the key to an effective culture inside a family. Now, That's habit 4. Think win-win, mutual benefit for both. Habit 5 now says this: do we understand each other? Seek first to understand, then be understood. It's the key. Understanding is the key for us to grow together and to gain mutual understanding.
Habit 5, listen first, talk second. In the early years of our marriage, when our children were all about us, I knew I was needed. I knew without me, it would be chaos in the family, but I did not always feel valued. When we listen to understand feelings, we say to that person, you matter to me. How you feel matters to me, and I want to know how you feel. John and I have decided, we have started something in our marriage, and it seems to be working for us. It's a 10-minute stop. It's, I need you for 10 minutes to drop everything and listen to how I feel. Now, maybe I'm going to be talking to him about something hugely important that can never be solved in 10 minutes, but it's burning in me right now, and I need 10 minutes to share with you how I feel. And John does the same with me. And if I come in and say, honey, I need 10 minutes, he knows what that means, and he drops everything. And I do the same for him. It's worked for us.
And what it means is that you try to capture in a most sincere and genuine way the feelings that the person is trying to convey, so that they feel like you care and that you seek genuinely to understand them. Why don't we try to role play that?
Right.
Can we do that?
We're going to try this. This is a real one that we've had together. John, our children are married now and our girls are out of the home. But I hear you on your cell phone sometimes early in the morning or later at night talking to one of our daughters. And you're laughing and sharing and having a great conversation with them. And you hang up and you don't even say anything to me.
Mm-hmm.
I feel out of the loop. I feel like you don't care. I feel like I want to know what's going on just like you do. I love them. I care about them. You have great conversations. You hang out. You don't share with me. You don't even include me.
Yeah.
I feel out of it and I feel hurt by it.
Yeah. I sense that you feel hurt and upset.
I do.
At me and a little angry because you want to be in the loop. You want to be as a part of their lives just as much as I do. And here I am not sharing with you and caring about that. And so you're upset and you're angry and
I'm not angry, but I feel hurt by it. I feel out of it.
Yes. Well, I'm sorry, and I want to correct that. I'll try to share with you immediately as best I possibly can.
Do I feel like I understand you?
Do you feel like I understand you?
Yes, I feel like
okay.
Now,
all right.
You have any issue you'd like to share with me?
Well, yes, I do. Okay. I know we're both working at home, but around 6 o'clock, I would like to set a time where we get together and just share. I miss that. I miss a definite time to share, to be with you. I love you. I see you as being a wonderfully intelligent person. I just want to eat dinner, and I'd like to block out a time at 6 o'clock if we could do that. And I feel kind of empty if we don't have that time, if it's just like ships passing in the night.
So what I hear you saying, that is that you feel like around 6 o'clock at night, toward the end of our workday, that if we would do something together, eat together, share together, and this would be important to you to have this special time of sharing.
Yes.
You feel like that this is important.
And I'd like to block out that time. To me, that would satisfy about 6 o'clock.
And that would be important to you.
That would
and we're not doing it now.
Yes.
Right. we often go and don't share anything.
Yeah.
All right. And if you don't do it, I hear you say you're feeling empty.
Yes.
And you're feeling sad and lonely and you miss me.
I do. And I think you understand how I feel. I love you, sweetie.
Okay.
Thanks.
Go do it. All right. It works for us. 10 minutes. And we suggest you try it with each other and see if it would work for you.
Now, something that is a simple, if you really want to try to empathize, then the simple role is this. Act like you're a translator, a foreign translator, so that you're not trying to figure them out or whatever, but you're simply sharing their feeling and their content back to them so that they feel valued. I don't care how much you know until I know how much you care is the premise behind habit number 5.
And also, I'd like to share with you that sometimes you feel like this is complicated or I don't know how to listen. If you have love in your heart for the person and you want to understand how they feel, I suggest you get yourself a zipper, an industrial size zipper, and just put it on your mouth and listen with your eyes and your ears and your heart to understand how that person feels. You can do it.
Habit 5 really is the magic habit, building that relationship of understanding. Now, habit 6 then says, let's synergize. Let's work together. Let's creatively work together and make something better happen, because 1 + 1 = 3 or more. You actually create more when you work together as a team.
I have a suggestion. Get a piece of computer paper and someone in the family just draw something that looks like a mountain. Anything that just looks like a mountain. Don't put anything on it, but just draw something that looks like a mountain. And then at the dinner table, pass it around and everyone draw something on it. A flower, a tree, a bird, maybe a sun in the sky or an airplane, a brook running through, anything, and see what you come up with. You see how much more you can create together than you could just alone. That's what it means to synergize as a family. But there's 2 rules of synergy. There's 2 rules that have to be followed if you want to have synergy in your family. Number 1, you have to value each other. You have to see value in each other. Every person in your family brings something to the table. And the second thing is you have to recognize strengths. Recognize strengths in each other. You all have strengths. We're all loaded with weaknesses. I taught a class once. This is a true story. And a woman came up to me after class and said, Jane, I think you're crazy. I said, okay. And she said, I've heard you talk about this, looking for strength and all this. She said, if I don't tell my husband every day what he's doing wrong, how is he ever going to improve? I said, well, how's it working? She said, well, yeah. Look for strengths. I'd like to say to you that this one habit, synergy, to value each other and recognize strengths in each other, has changed the culture of our home more than anything else. Some years ago, when John was just sort of discovering how to relate the 7 habits to families, he got an idea. I don't know whether he got it from somebody else or whether he made it up himself. I don't know. We've been doing it so long, I don't know. He said to me, how about in the morning before the children go to school or around the table before we have dinner at night, we have a compliment. We choose one person and give them a compliment. No sarcasm, nothing rude, only maybe it's a one-word compliment. I said, great, let's try it. Every day we did it. Now, normal people would probably do it once a week, but we did it every day. You might want to do it around the dinner table at night. Let's have a compliment for Joey, 16-year-old boy. I love Joey because he's funny, because he takes me places, because I like his friends. Or I like Rachel because she helps me with my homework. She reads to me. Rachel's kind. Pick one person in the family and share a compliment. Just a suggestion at these times when we're all together and when it's such a hard time right now, I'd like to suggest that you might try this. It is looking for strengths in each other. It has changed the culture of our home, and I think it might change the culture of yours. That's habit 6. And John?
It's interesting because we have a bathroom mirror, and on her side of the mirror, I put all my strengths. And on my side of the mirror, I put all her strengths, so that we think in terms of strength. We build in terms of strengths and try to stay away from criticisms.
True.
Okay.
We do this. It's still on the mirror today, I would just notice.
Now,
would you share the story with your mother?
I would love to.
Share that letter from your mother.
This is a classic. My mother was one that always felt the strength of her children and always built us. And so here's a letter, and it's just a sample letter. And by that, I mean I've received 10 or 20 of these. So here it is, April 5th, 1972, the Holland American line. I was 37 and I'd been married 12 years. And this is what I got. Dear John, this is to let you know how much I love you, my hero son. I read you into every hero I read or see on the screen. You are so handsome, so alive, full of virtue and integrity and goodness. I think of you so many times each day. I wish I could see you more often. We're so proud of you and Jane and your lovely family. You are so kind and thoughtful to each member of the family. It means a great deal to them. With love and kisses to you and each one, Mom. How would you like to live in a culture raised in that kind of positive building culture? It's undeniably powerful.
Sometimes people say to me, you've been teaching the 7 habits of families for over 20 years. If you were just to draw a few ideas from that, what would they be? Or maybe 1 or 2. I have 4 things I'd like to share with you from my heart. These are the most important learnings of my life. The first one is this. Just what we've been talking about. In your families, look for strengths in each other. Build on strengths. Talk about strengths. John and I have enormous flat sides. I'm a terrible cook. He knows it. He just won't admit it.
I think she's wonderful.
No, I know. I'm a terrible cook. But that doesn't define me. And I also am not as tidy as I should be. And we're finding that out now that we're together day and night. All of you are. But that doesn't define who I am. I have strengths. I have talents. I have gifts. So does John. So do you. So do each one of your children. Dwell on and recognize strengths in each other. The second thing is that I've already talked about. Say the words I love you to each other, especially this time now. We're together. We're under stress. This is a difficult time. But say the words I love you to each other. It's a huge emotional deposit, and we need to hear from each other. The third thing is this. Some of you may have older children who have made some very poor choices in life and are suffering the consequences of that right now. And they're blaming everything on you for their poor choices. And you're saying to yourself, I don't deserve this. You don't deserve it. But never let the thread break. Keep the thread strong. They need you. They will always need you. Never let the thread break in your families. And the fourth thing is this. You're home now. A lot more than you want to be, probably, for most of us. You, in your own homes, teach your children the things you want them to know. This is a time for you to share your values. This is a time for you to draw together as a family. This is a time for you to try to practice some of the things we've talked about around the kitchen table. Share with each other. This is a time to bond together. Teach your children the things you want them to know.
Now, I just think that those four things have made a tremendous difference in our lives. But the final habit is habit 7, sharpen the saw. We have a body, we have a mind, we have a heart, we have a spirit. And in each one of those areas, keep that strong, keep those things going. Because when I ask you, one thing you should do to stop with your body? What's one thing you should do to stop with your spirit? What's one thing you should stop with your heart? What's one thing you should stop with your mind? You'll come up with ideas. And one thing you should start in all those areas. It's powerful. And you'll be using the gifts that you have been strengthened and blessed with in every way. And so, as a family, sharpen the saw physically, mentally, spiritually, socially, emotionally. Be loving and kind. Family is a we experience. It's not a me. It's a we experience. As a matter of fact, life is a team sport. And no greater opportunity than in your own family. And the interesting thing is, and we know this, you never retire from family. It's always something that's vital and important.
A couple of years ago, I was having a really down night. I said to John, I don't know, nobody's calling me. The kids aren't calling me. I don't know if anybody likes me. I was just having a true down day. And John didn't have any idea what to do. He wanted to help me, but he had no idea. He just said, I don't know how to help you, honey. And so the next morning, I found this poem on my desk, and I'd like to read it to you. Now, this is for a couple that are older, like we are, but I think you can appreciate it. John didn't write this, he found this. And I'm going to just take it right now and read it. Right. I have. He wrote, I find I don't have the words to adequately express my feelings like other people do. They use the words I need to use to express my feelings. This poem used the words that says how I feel about my love and gratitude for you, my Jane. The whole world's singing now that spring has come. I saw a robin in the morning sun. Among the pale green leaves and bursting buds, I hear his talk. But it is autumn where we walk. 'Tis true for us, the summer, too, is gone. Now whip-lashed winds arise, and further on, the ice and sleet and cold in grim assault to pierce us through. Does fall in springtime frighten you? Impotent shines the April sun so fair to melt the wisps of frost within your hair. My dear, I know you felt the threatening gloom, but I'm with you, and hand in hand, we'll face the winter too. Could I share the one story about Josh?
Would you please?
Dear friends, in conclusion, I'd like to share a very personal story that happened in our family. I'd like to share that with you. We have a grandson named Josh. And when Josh was 13 years old, I want to tell you what he looked like. Josh was small for his age, shorter than most boys at 13, and slender, but strong. He'd had on a singlet since he was 5 years old. He was a wrestler. His father's a big wrestler, his uncles, and Josh was a wrestler. But he was one of those kids that was always on the move at 13. And he was on a skateboard. He was always sweaty, a little dirt under his fingernails. Josh had sandy blonde hair, big luminous blue eyes, freckles on his face, teeth way too big for his mouth, and that tough, little, skinny body, sweaty and sometimes smelly, actually. At age 13, this was Josh. He said to his mother one day, "I am so tired, Mom. I'm so tired all the time." And his mother said, "Josh, you seem fine in every way." And he said, "Also, I'm getting a sore throat." They went to the doctor, and the doctor said, "I can't find anything wrong with you, Josh." But as time went on, the sore throat didn't go away, and Josh just became more and more tired. His father, who was a doctor, said, "I want a biopsy on that throat. It's been way too long." They did a biopsy on Josh's throat and found that inside his throat, in the whole upper half of his little body, there were tumors. These tumors were about the size of golf balls, and they were filled with cancer. There were tumors half filling his lungs, all around his liver and his heart. The whole upper half of that little body was filled with these cancer-filled tumors, with a form of cancer that was so fast-growing. It had gone from 0 to stage 4 of a 4-stage cancer in 2.5 months. And there had been no signs except that Josh was tired and until these tumors started to grow up into his throat. So what to do? Of course, they had to start chemo. Now, you know chemo. Chemotherapy has brushed all of our lives. None of us are immune to it. But I didn't really understand what it was until I saw Josh. When he'd go up to the cancer center and have the chemo, after that Friday he had with the drops in his arm, he would be sick, vomiting, diarrhea, pardon me for being graphic, and pain all over his body. I went over to his house after one of the sessions, and he was just lying on the bed, sick, vomiting, and in such pain and hallucinating. He didn't know whether it was morning or night. I started to cry. And his mother, our daughter, said, "You can't cry, Mom. If you're going to be here, you can't cry." I said, "I can't cry?" He said, "No." She said, "No." Josh sat us down, Mom, as a family, and he said, "I am 13 years old. I am not going to die, and I am not going to cry. And I don't want any of you walking around this house looking at me like I'm going to die. I am not." She said, "And he doesn't cry, Mom. He doesn't cry." I said, "Okay, I won't cry." Every Friday, Josh went to the cancer center and had the chemo, the vomiting, the diarrhea, this pain, for 8 months. After 8 months, they tested him and they said, "We can't give him any more. It'll kill him." And the cancer hadn't gone down. When they tested him, it hadn't moved, it hadn't changed. So now they had to start radiation. I didn't really know what radiation meant until I saw it with Josh. Every Friday, he would go into a dark room, lay down on a metal table. They would tie his hands down, his feet down, and they made a mesh mask that they put for his head and tied his face back with the metal mask. Then they took his shirt off and put marks on his body where they started to burn the cancers out. And in total blackness, the tech would leave the room, and Josh would lie there in total blackness while they tried to burn the cancer out of his body. Afterwards, the same kind of sickness. This went on for 4 more months, and then they said, we can't give him any more. We'll test him now, and that's it. That's all we can do. On the very last day of the testing, I was at Josh's house when he came home with his mother. He walked in the door and said, finally, it's over. It's been over a year. It's over. It's over, Grandma. It's over. I said, you know, Josh, you've had a lot of prayers offered in your behalf. Do you feel it's made a difference? He said, oh, yes, I know it has. I said, how do you know? He said, I know because sometimes when I'm alone in the dark in the radiation room, I feel someone standing next to me. We have a picture of Josh when he was 17 years old. It's Josh as a wrestler, and he was a senior in high school. He made it to the state finals. I don't know if you can get any bigger thrill as a high school boy wrestling than to make it to the state finals. And he did. He lost that match, but he won every match up to it. Josh is a healthy boy today. He's in his early 20s. I said to him last summer, you're a fighter, Josh. He said, I am, Grandma. I'm a fighter. So what does this story have to do with the 7 habits and us today? We saw in a little boy a fighter's heart that we didn't know was there. None of us even knew Josh until that day. We didn't know him, but we saw it for the next year and a month, a fighter's heart. So what does this have to do with us and the 7 habits for families? We're going to fight for our families. We're going to overcome this. We're going to win this. We're going to fight as Americans, as people all over the world. We are going to have fighters' hearts, and we will win with our families. I know we can. We have seen it, and we're going to do it.
I know we can as well. And we want to thank you for the privilege, and we want to make you a promise. The 7 habits are principles that will build unity and joy and happiness in your family. We've seen it in our family. We've seen it in families throughout all the world. We know that it can help your family. May you have a wonderful, united, glorious time together.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.